What's going on, everyone? So every year during the pre-draft process, every team gets 30 official visits. Basically, this means the player comes to the facility and kind of sees what a potential fit would be with that team. And since we are in the month of April and getting closer and closer to the draft, more top 30 visits have been released for the Green Bay Packers. So in today's video, I wanted to break down all the current top 30 visits that the Packers have made with these upcoming NFL prospects and take a look at each of them. Because the top 30 visits are the most important ones. For example, last year before the draft, the Packers had top 30 visits with Dontavian Wicks, Lou Nichols, Sean Clifford, Ben Sims, and Carl Brooks. And then during the 2022 draft process with Tariq Carpenter, Samori Toure, Devontae Wyatt, Christian Watson, and Romeo Doubs. So when you look at these top 30 visits, the Packers will most likely end up drafting multiple of these players. Now, obviously, all of them haven't been conducted or announced yet. Right now, the list stands at 7 total visits, which is what we're going to be looking into today. All right, so before we dive into the top 30 visit breakdown, I want to let you guys know that this video is being powered by Sleeper. And since it's a new month, I am doing a new giveaway. Thank you to Sleeper. So for this month, we are giving away a signed Lucas Van Ness Packers jersey right here. Thank you to Sleeper. And it's very easy to enter. Go down in the description, download the Sleeper app, use code BASS when making a first-time deposit. Not only will you get a first-time deposit match up to $500, it'll enter you in this giveaway. I just posted the winner of the signed Christian Watson jersey on the community tab, and I will do so at the end of the month for this signed Lucas Van Ness jersey. So head over to Sleeper, where you can choose your favorite sport and favorite players, pick a particular stat, and choose higher or lower. You can choose from 2 to 8 of your favorite players from different sports and different games. And on Sleeper, you can get up to 100x payouts. So again, head down into the description, download Sleeper, make a first-time deposit, get that matched up to $500 on your first-time deposit, and that'll enter you in this signed Lucas Van Ness jersey giveaway for April. All right, so without further ado, let's dive down into all the top 30 visits for the Green Bay Packers of the 2024 draft that we know of so far. And we'll likely get new ones almost every single day. And when we get another chunk of them, I'll make an updated video because they're going to be happening all the time. But let's go over the ones that we know are official right now. So bringing up the list right now, I'm going to quickly go over the list and then we're going to kind of break down each player. So the first one was Zach Zinter. He's a guard out of Michigan. Then we have Jaren Jones, cornerback out of FSU, Jaquan Shepard, cornerback from Maryland, Edan Cooper, inside linebacker from Texas A&M, Trevon Wallace, inside linebacker from Kentucky, Michael Hall, defensive lineman from Ohio State, Christian Boyd, defensive tackle from Northern Iowa, and most recently, which was actually this morning, right before recording this video, Tyler Guyton, tackle from Oklahoma. So first, let's dive into Zach Zinter, the guard from Michigan. He's a player that I've been starting to take an eye to in a lot of my mock drafts and is a player that I like in the middle to later rounds for the Green Bay Packers at a potential replacement at right guard. You draft Jon Runyan, an offensive lineman from Michigan, in the 6th round. You could probably replace him with Zach Zinter in the 5th or 6th round of this draft, and maybe he ends up being a starter at right guard. We see last year a 76.6, didn't allow a single sack. The year before that, he did allow 2 sacks, but also a 75.7 grade. Last year's run block grade, 75.8, pass block grade, 73.8. And we see all of the last 3 seasons down here on the snaps here, all at right guard. 649 last year, 917 the year before that. 731 snaps in 2021. So he is a true guard and will be at the NFL level. Zinter is a 6'6", 322-pound guard. He didn't qualify for RAS, but looking at his pros and cons, good combo block play and power run blocking schemes, which is what the Packers need. We need more run blocking linemen. Leg drive doesn't quit once he latches on. Powerful player who can displace when he hits. Upper body power to anchor despite being lighter in the lower half. Size is his best attribute, and pass protection also shows good patience. As for the cons, nimble footwork for a player of his size, light in the pants, that's wild to put that. Most of his weight and power comes from above his waist, stiff at the hip, a little hunched over his posture, below average athlete for the guard position. Taller height gives him more length, but also makes it tougher for him to get low for leverage, especially with hip stiffness. That's the first thing I definitely noticed too with Zach Zinter is he's a massive guard, 6'6", 322 pounds. Typically guards aren't over 6'5". Not that that matters too much. The Packers Packers like their linemen that are versatile, and maybe Zach Zinter could, potentially be a, say, right tackle at the NFL level. But overall, Zinter is likely a 4th or 5th round lineman in this draft, and we know the Packers love to draft linemen in those rounds, so he very well could be one of the Packers' picks in those rounds. Next, we have Jaren Jones, and he's one of my favorite draft crushes in this upcoming draft, so I'm very glad the Packers have a top 30 visit with him, and I think he just fits so well with what the Packers need in a slot cornerback. We see last year a 90.1 grade. He had 3 interceptions, only allowed a 25.3 passer rating, an 87.0 coverage grade, man coverage grade of 90.7. We know the Packers want to run more man coverage this year, and we see this year 394 snaps in the slot. Now, last 2 years before that, he did play outside cornerback, but he's definitely going to be a slot cornerback in the NFL. But of course, he does have some versatility. 6 foot, 191 pounds. Looking at his RAS, he's a great athlete. He had a 9.6 RAS with a 4.38 40, great 20-yard split, great 10-yard split. Size is all right, so he's actually 5'11". He's not 6 foot, 190 pounds, but that's fine. Elite explosion grade, 39.5-inch vertical with a 10'9" broad jump. And as for his pros and cons, quick and balanced footwork in his back pedal. Quickness is his calling card of his game. It shows in his hips and acceleration. Willing run defender, even executed some rip moves to get around blockers and run defense. You'll love to see it. We need a nickel that's great against the run, reliable tackler, that as well. Smart from the slot, when in trail technique, knows to take the path that naturally cuts off passes, specifically on deep crossers. And there's only one con listed here, limited long speed, likely why he's pushed into the slot. But running a 4.38, I don't think speed's going to be an issue with Jaren Jones, and we need a slot cornerback anyways. He's one of my favorite options in, say, the 3rd round for the Green Bay Packers at cornerback. If they don't go cornerback early, or even if they do with a pure outside guy, I still really like Jaren Jones, say, in the 3rd round as a slot guy. Next, we have Edan Cooper, which I'm not going to dive too much into because I actually did a prospect breakdown on him last week. So if you want to go watch that video from last week, just click the link right above, and we really go into a breakdown of Edan Cooper as well as look at some tape. So I'm going to quickly go over Edan Cooper here, but he's a potential 1st round to 2nd round draft selection for the Packers at linebacker, which is a need for them. A 90.8 grade last year with 58 total tackles. Pass rush grade was great. Run defense grade was great, 87.6. Coverage grade was awesome, 85.5. About average missed tackle rate, 12.8%. Coverage stops, 19. Run stops, 37. He's 6'3", 230 pounds, and looking at his RAS, he's a good athlete. 9.12 RAS, a little bit on the undersized side for a linebacker, but that's the way the NFL is nowadays. But in terms of speed, he's elite at 4.5, 140, good 20-yard, good 10-yard split. He has good agility grade and a good explosion grade as well. I like the thought of Edan Cooper being paired up with someone like Quay Walker, even though they're similar linebackers. I just think having 2 of those guys just flying around the field would be awesome to have in this new Hafley defense. Next, we have Trevon Wallace, linebacker from Kentucky, and he's starting to slightly climb up boards due to his new RAS. Not great grades the last season, 61.1 grade. He had 54 total tackles. Not too crazy high in terms of a missed tackle rate, 11.5%. All his grades right around that average mark, right around 60.0. He had 13 coverage stops, 20 run stops. He did allow 28 receptions on 31 targets, 90.3 completion percentage, but did have an interception and allowed an 88.6 passer rating allowed. Now, Wallace is a good athlete. He's 6'1", 237 pounds, and we see where his speed, he's great, 4.5, 140, good 20-yard split, okay 10-yard split, and he has elite explosion, 37.5 vertical, 10'7" broad jump. So right now he's kind of at like that 7th round mark. Maybe he climbs into the 6th round, or maybe he's even an undrafted free agent. But the Packers like to visit with the later round guys as well as potential fits for this team, which if the Packers are going to draft multiple linebackers, look for Trevon Wallace in the 7th round. Next, we have Michael Hall Jr., defensive lineman from Ohio State, and I've looked at him a couple times during mock drafts, and he reminds me a lot of the couple guys we already have on the team with Colby Wood and Carl Brooks, but hey, adding another guy like that wouldn't be a problem. He had a 77.2 PFF grade last year with 2 sacks. He had an 84.8 pass rush grade, a 18.3% pass rush win rate, and also a nice run stop rate of 7.3%. And I think the Packers may be looking at him as more of a defensive end, a run stopping early down defensive end, being 6'2", 280 pounds, because now they're switching to the 4-3. I think that's a little bit too light to put him inside at defensive tackle. So maybe the Packers are looking for more big-bodied, traditional 4-3 defensive ends, and that's where Michael Hall Jr. would fit into this defense with Van Ness, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, even someone like Colby Wooden, who's right around this same weight as well. Michael Hall still under 21 years old, so be a nice, prospect to bring into the building at defensive end. In terms of his pros and cons, can shoot gaps and get across the face of linemen with consistency. Looks like a basketball player with his Euro step setups. Decent ability to corner. In terms of cons, leg drive lacks power and displacement strength, even against single blocks. Does not hold up well against combination blocks. Looking at his RAS, you can see why the Packers met with him, right? He's a defensive end at this size with a 9.60 RAS, 6'2", almost 6'3". It's listed at 300 pounds here. PFF has him as 280, so we'll see where he is, closer to the draft. But again, I think this is more of a defensive end for the Packers. RS has him as a defensive tackle, so that's why he does have this 9.60. I believe he dropped down to like a 7.76 if you switch him to defensive end RAS. But elite speed for defensive tackle, 9.92, but elite speed for defensive tackle ran a 4.75. So it really depends what weight he's at, or if the Packers were to draft him, what weight they want him to be at. That would kind of depict where he would be on that defense, whether it's a defensive tackle on pass rushing downs or defensive end on early downs against the run. Then we have Christian Boyd, another one of my draft crushes. I drafted him in a few mock drafts so far this year. Just reminds me of Carl Brooks in terms of just playing against lower talent, but his stats are just off the chart. It was the same with Carl Brooks last year, and it shocked me to see him fall to the 6th round. I'm getting similar vibes from Christian Boyd here. He's a different type of player than Carl Brooks, but I'm getting those same vibes. An 89.0 PFF grade last year with 3 sacks. Pass rush grade 89.4. Run defense 83.9. Really great pass rush win rate at 16.4%, and a good run stop rate at 7.8%. He's 6'4", 317 pounds. So he would definitely be a defensive tackle in this Packers defense. And I do believe and agree that they need to add like one more guy, whether that's a Michael Hall or a Christian Boyd. I think they need to add one more guy into that room to have a nice rotation, to really have certain sets for run downs and pass downs on later downs. Right now, some pages have him as a 6th round selection. So like I said, very similar to Carl Brooks. I could see him going as high as the 4th to 5th round, if I'm being honest. But I like that the Packers do have a top 30 visit with him. He's one of my favorite defensive linemen in this class. Then we have Jaquan Shepard, cornerback from Maryland. Now, there's no PFF profile on him or NFL draft buzz, so he's kind of on the lower end, maybe a 7th round guy, undrafted free agent. The Packers still can do top 30 visits with those guys. So I found a profile on him on Fantasy Pros, cornerback from Maryland. Looking at his profile, he's 6'2", 202 pounds, so more of a rangy cornerback, probably an outside guy, because I know Tariq still played nickel for them last year, so Jaquan Shepard probably one of their outside cornerbacks. And if you look at his summary, a big, smooth zone cover corner who shows good sight lines and overall awareness, with a conservative on-field temperament that could appeal to bend, don't break defensive schemes. Hopefully we're not doing that anymore, right? He didn't play a ton of man coverage during the games reviewed, and may not have the ideal twitch and explosiveness to excel in that type of scheme, and tackling has been an issue over the course of his career. Man, this is not looking like a good profile, if I'm being honest. Looks like a mid to late round tools-based developmental prospect for a cover 3 quarters heavy defense. That just sounds like someone the Packers would be looking at if they still had Joe Barry, right? The noticeable improvement has showed from 2022 to 2023 should help, and they have projection at round 6. That sounds like a round 7 to an undrafted free agent type of guy. But again, the Packers meet with those type of guys, but it doesn't sound like he really fits this new defensive style. Then finally, we have the most recent visit this morning, Tyler Guyton, tackle from Oklahoma. He's a potential 1st round pick, maybe early 2nd round pick if they were to trade up in that 2nd round, but he is an option at 25. He's not my favorite option. Personally, I think it's too much of a risk to take him in the 1st round. He doesn't have many snaps over his career, 661 snaps last year, 350 the year before that. That's really it, right? Not great grades last year, 63.7, but he didn't allow a single sack. Run block grade, 60.5. Pass block grade, 72.9. But what you're buying into with Tyler Guyton is the profile and the athleticism. 6'7", 327 pounds, and of course the athletic profile, 9.74 RES, great size, 6'7", almost 6'8", 322 pounds, and still good speed for that size, 5'19", 40, good agility grade, great explosion grade with a 34.5-inch vertical, which is insane for someone that size. In terms of his pros and cons, it's truly elite movement skills, could honestly play tight end, fires off the ball, defensive end background shows up there. His kick slides cover a ton of ground without him having to overextend and get off balance. Good power with initial punch, evolved hand techniques from 2022 to 2023. Cons, strike placement is off, allowing the defenders to more easily roll off his blocks. Hand placement is very inconsistent when it comes to strike locations and gripping the right spots to maintain blocks. Late to react to stunts, twists, delayed rushes. More of a pusher than a blocker. High pad level at the snap. So important thing to note there, he is a former defensive end transitioning into an offensive tackle. So not much experience here, but like I said, you're buying into the profile and the prospect of the player and what he could become at tackle. But to me, that's not worth a first round selection. If he was there in one of the Packers second round picks and they wanted to take a developmental tackle because we have Zach Tom at right, Rasheed Walker at left, and they want another guy with great measurables and a great profile, I'd be okay with it, but definitely not at pick 25. So those are all the top 30 visits for the Green Bay Packers so far as of April 2nd, as we are in draft month and we near closer and closer. Like I said, when we get another chunk of top 30 draft visits, I'll make an updated video going over those guys as well. And guys, these are very important. As I listed earlier in this video, the players from the last 2 seasons, many of them that we drafted, we had a top 30 draft visit with. So these are important to keep an eye on because the Packers will likely end up with 2 to 3 to maybe even 4 players from their top 30 visits. Let me know, out of all these top 30 visits that I listed today, which one of these players would you like the most in the green and gold? Let me know down in the comments below. But I appreciate you guys coming out to the video. If you could, please leave a like down below. It supports the channel a ton. Thank you guys for all the endless support on the channel. I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack Go.